Does God exist? There will be only this one question for this video that I will address. Let's be honest, it's huge enough by itself, and it is arrogant enough to try to answer it. Dicit ei Pilatus, quid est veritas? And Pilate said to him, what is truth? In canonical gospel, there is no answer from Jesus. But in apocryphal gospel of Nicodemus, Jesus answers, truth is of heaven. The existence of God and relationships with God bothered humans throughout all observable history. With a little difference, it was more a question of who is God instead of today's is there a God at all? That was a long way of human ego development. But pride was the reason all civilizations died, one way or another. And there were some before us, current humans, according to sacred texts, at least Plato's Atlantis. But that is another topic. Anyway, it was exactly a corrupted relation to God that cost civilizations their existence. As their ego grew, they wanted to be equal to God, not to obey. We went even further. We deny God altogether. By we, I mean society in general, as a civilization, on the scientific and cultural level. Faith became just a personal choice, which is still a lot. In the end, it is even all that is needed, a personal choice, a free will. However, society influences that choice, especially for young, immature personalities. So it is important what humanity as an entire entity thinks of God. Now the scientific replaced the religious, the material replaced the spiritual, but the snake of science grew big enough and material world became too small for it. So now it is biting its own tail. Let me demonstrate. As science develops, it goes deeper. Whether physics, mathematics, genomics, neurobiology, astrophysics, etc. Every field faces a border, some red flags we should not cross. But I would call it a wall with doors that are closed, even locked, but not without a chance to open them. Or let's say the key is already there, we just need to turn it. But how?
I'm the white rabbit.
Each scientific field has unresolved questions at its deepest root. Physics doesn't know exactly what particles are. They aren't hard little things we couldn't knock on if we could, even though we try to knock them into one another in the Hadron Collider and split them into something smaller. But we reached the limit and have to admit they are energies, all of one kind in the end. So what is that ultimate original energy that forms everything? And moreover, particles are not just energy, but possibilities of energy that are not defined until there is an observer. That quantum indeterminate state is a real mystery, a cloud of possibilities that becomes specific only when measured, and not only the one that observer observes, but infinite branches of the universe with different possibilities played out as all variants exist. They do not disappear as the mathematical wave function does not collapse, as some physicists might want, and yet matter becomes the world we know only because of the observer. So who is the observer of all variants then? Physics cannot explain how the unique combination of finely tuned physical constants happened, the only combination that makes the universe as we know it possible. Any deviation in any constant, whether Planck, gravity, or any other constant, and boom, the universe would not exist, or there will be no boom at all. So who tuned the material world so precisely that it is able to exist? Astrophysics using quantum equations hits limitations as well. It cannot say what happened at the very beginning of the universe, if there was beginning at all, in that tiniest moment from 0 point or singularity when time itself might not have existed because our equations break down at Planck scale limits. That singularity point, where everything concentrated in nothing, is unimaginable and unexplained. What is that? Or maybe who? Or consider another paradoxical question. Why did matter particles prevail over antimatter in the early universe, allowing this world to happen at all instead of annihilate constantly? That slightest imbalance that ensured existence as we know it. It is not even that important whether it was toward matter or antimatter. Why did just one extra baryon appear? Who pushed the scales of the otherwise equal possibilities? Biology cannot explain how a cell became alive. Scientists can transform cells, grow different cell types, and edit genomes, but they cannot create a living cell from non-living chemicals. They cannot make a cell truly come alive in the sense of division and reproduction. So who is making non-living material life? Biology cannot explain even the purpose of 95% of the genome, nor explain its existence and complexity as developed by mutations, even though DNA has a set of extremely sophisticated defensive mechanisms against mutations. Any programmer can be amazed by the complexity of that code and its data protection mechanisms and procedures. So, who is the genius programmer of that code? Neurobiology doesn't know how information is stored in the brain. It cannot explain the default state of the brain when predictive simulations and spontaneous time travel happen. We don't know why the brain needs sleep. Yes, we assume what the brain is doing during sleep, but why is that full unconscious state needed if its complexity would allow all processes to be paralleled? But most important, neurobiology cannot truly answer what consciousness is. Different definitions and models exist, basically explaining consciousness as a sum of cognition, but none of them explains self-awareness, thinking about yourself. Who is the I making decision and meta-thinking? If I decide to clap my hands, I might be ready to clap, but I decide when to clap. Who is that I deciding exactly when? We understand the chemistry and the signals from brain to muscles, but who is the personality making the precise decision to start those signals? The conscious level, not cognition or mind, but consciousness itself, cannot be fully explained. Then who is that personality thinking inside us? In math, infinity and even zero, which math operates with, give enough frustration if you think deeply about them. But a more elegant example is Gödel's incompleteness theorems, which in short say that no mathematical basis can be created that can be proven from inside just by itself. Or, in other words, in any consistent axiomatic system, there is a true statement that is non-derivable and cannot be proved, but it's true. Think deeply about that. There is a truth that cannot be proven, the original truth. So what or who is that original truth? This is not even the full list. I talked just about the scientific facts. Some I investigated in more detail in earlier videos. You can go there and explore them. Links are in the description. And here I only listed them just to demonstrate that they all point toward doors with the same lock, a single absolute source, which I call God. Not in a religious sense, I do not try to invite anyone to any religion, but in the sense of some ultimate definition, if you will. So, to unlock these scientific doors, we have to admit there is something more powerful than us, something we encounter when reaching the limits of science, in the core, in the smallest small, and at the endless end. But we cannot do this, cannot admit there is something absolutely powerful out there because of our arrogance, ignorance, and darkness. Thinking we are the most developed creatures are tempting. It gives an illusion of power, Power is the strongest drug in this material world, not even money, but power. That arrogance comes from the desire to see ourselves as the crown of evolution for those who believe in natural evolution. Scientists who fought to explain the world and clashed with religion do not want to return to religious frameworks, and I understand why. During religious supremacy, dogmas and the usurpation of the idea of God were used to control and manipulate people. I do not encourage a return to that, but I do encourage accepting that we have reached limits. We might discover more about different brain frequencies, new cosmic objects, or more particles in colliders, which are mere combinations of original energy forms. But such discoveries will not answer the deepest question.
It's the question that drives us, Leah. It's the question that brought you here. You know the question, just as I did.
What is the origin of all this? The universe, life, particles, consciousness, the origin of existence in all its aspects. What happened at the very beginning of existence? How did the beginning of existence itself happen? Was there a beginning at all? What is that ultimate original energy, original truth, and original life? The only answer that is the key to those doors that can open them and let us explore truly further to the next level of understanding is the acceptance that we face a power we cannot measure or capture with the laws and equations we know. That power is God. God is the source of those rules, laws, and equations. He is the absolute and the origin of everything, and therefore cannot be measured by smaller derivatives of himself, which are all those equations and laws. Call it God, the source, the supreme personality, the absolute, call it whatever you prefer. But this is the power we cannot measure, explain, and for sure control and rule.
The answer is out there, Nina. It's looking for you. And it will find you if you want it to.
This is what my whole channel is about, to show that all our findings, including the recent great scientific advances, speak about the same things as sacred texts and ancient wisdom spoke 1,000 years before, and demonstrate that we've reached a point where we cannot answer further questions without stepping into the spiritual realm. We need to set aside ignorance, arrogance, temper, and ego, and simply accept that. There is a treasure in the center of that science maze, behind the doors we've faced. Everything that cannot be measured should not be denied, but explored, and that path will lead to a fuller, next-level understanding of life. And I can say all this because I'm not a scientist who has built a career in a highly competitive environment, one ready to tear you apart, mock you, ignore you, or refuse to take you seriously, jeopardizing years of effort spent reaching some degree of recognition, respect, value, and voice. While not being a scientist gives me less mobility in the factual field, it also gives me a clean observation angle, being outside the system, not shaped by its norms or pressures. A fresh eye, if you will. Not being part of scientific world not only gives me a different kind of freedom to express any idea I have, but also gives me the advantage of knowing there are no consequences to my scientific career, because I don't have one. So I'm comfortable playing, let's say, the bad policeman. And my next question, to which I do not hope to find a clue even, will be, how did the absolute God appear?